I still remember the day my world shattered. December 24th, 2019. It's strange how normal everything seemed that morning. I had forgotten my phone at home and needed to message my girlfriend, so I dug out her old iPad from storage to use Messenger. That's when I saw them. Messages from her high school sweetheart, filled with heart emojis and words that made my stomach turn. We had been together for 4 years by then. I'd moved across the world for her, leaving my life in Australia behind to build a future together in Los Angeles. When we first met during my family vacation to California, everything felt perfect. The connection was instant. She showed me around LA, and even though I lived on the other side of the Pacific, we made it work long distance for a year. I saved every penny I could, found a job in Los Angeles, and finally made the move to be with her. It wasn't easy, but she was worth it. Or so I thought. Her ex was her first love. They had dated for 2 years in high school and college. She never told me much about why they broke up, and I never pushed for details. I met her about a year after their relationship ended. Now, staring at their messages, I wished I had asked more questions. I spent 2 days reading through their conversations, each message feeling like a knife to my heart. He had cancer, stage 1, and she was talking about leaving me for a few months to take care of him. They had already met up at his place to catch up, and the way they discussed their time together made it clear there was more to the story. For a week, I carried this knowledge around like a heavy stone in my chest. She had no idea I knew. Everything seemed normal to her. But I couldn't look her in the eye anymore without feeling like I might break down. I had no friends in LA to turn to. Everyone I knew was back home in Australia, busy with their own lives. The pain was so intense that I found myself thinking about self-harm, something I'd never considered before. In my darkest moment, I wrote my resignation letter and messaged my parents about coming home. I kept thinking about how to handle this situation, but every option felt impossible. How do you confront the person you love about betraying your trust? How do you handle discovering that the life you built together might have been built on sand? I was considering just leaving while she was at work, packing my bags and disappearing. But fate had other plans. When I posted about my situation online, looking for advice, something unexpected happened. A stranger named James reached out, offering me a place to stay just 15 minutes from our apartment. His kindness became my lifeline, giving me the strength to face what needed to be done. Looking back now, I realize that sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones we need to make to save ourselves. And sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places. Like a stranger on the internet who becomes the friend you desperately need in your darkest hour. The confrontation I had been dreading was coming. I knew it would change everything, but I had no idea just how much my life was about to transform in the span of a few hours. The moment she walked through our apartment door that evening, I knew she sensed something was wrong. Tears were already welling up in her eyes before I said a word. Some part of me wanted to comfort her. 4 years of loving someone doesn't just disappear in an instant, but I had to keep reminding myself that none of this was my fault. I had imagined this conversation 100 times in my head. In my imagination, I was always angry, screaming, letting out all the hurt she had caused me. But when the moment actually came, all I felt was a deep, hollow disappointment. We sat down, and through my own tears, I told her about finding the iPad and reading their messages. She tried to explain, saying she just felt sorry for him, that their history made it hard for her to say no. That's when I reminded her of our own history, how I had been there through her lowest points, how I had helped her get back up when she was down. Then came the confession that shattered whatever was left of my heart. They had been intimate more than 3 times. Even though I had suspected it, hearing her confirm it felt like being punched in the gut. I broke down completely. Some parts of that conversation are still a blur. My mind was spinning trying to process everything. But I remember clearly the moment I told her we were done, that whatever we had was over. She knelt in front of me, begging for forgiveness, but I knew I could never trust her again. Cheating isn't a mistake, it's a choice. James, the Redditor who had offered me help, came to pick me up that night. While she was crying on our couch, I packed a third of my clothes and left our apartment, the home we had built together, now just another reminder of her betrayal. James and his wife turned out to be incredible people. They didn't just give me a place to stay. They offered to help me sell the stuff I couldn't take back to Australia and promised to help me gather the rest of my things from the apartment later. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I sent my resignation letter to work, and my family back home rallied around me with support. Messages started pouring in from her family too, saying I shouldn't rush things, that everyone makes mistakes. They were good people, and it hurt knowing I might never see them again. But I had to stand firm. Some mistakes you can't come back from. She sent me a long email around 5 a.m. one morning. My eyes were so swollen from crying that I couldn't even read it. I just deleted it right away. The pain was raw, and every reminder of her felt like salt in an open wound. I missed her like crazy, but I knew what I had to do. It was time to go home. The support I received from complete strangers online was overwhelming. In my darkest moment, when I had considered hurting myself, this virtual community had become my lifeline. I might have lost a girlfriend and a future wife, but I had gained friends I never expected to have. As one chapter of my life was ending in heartbreak, another was beginning with the kindness of strangers. The transition back to Australia wasn't as smooth as I had hoped. I couldn't sell everything I owned in time, so I ended up giving away most of my stuff to people who needed it. The TV I had bought for her that she loved so much, my PS4, even our microwave. Somehow, giving these things to people in need made the pain a little more bearable. But things got complicated when I got home. One night, after having too much to drink, I said some harsh things about her ex and his cancer. My older brother Kurt got really upset about it. One of his close friends had died of cancer, and my words hit too close to home. What started as a drunken comment turned into a full-blown fight, and suddenly my plan to stay with him in Brisbane fell apart. Instead of the fresh start I had imagined, I found myself living with my parents in Perth, feeling completely lost. The days started blending together. I couldn't find the motivation to look for a job or even get out of bed some days. The weight of everything, losing her, leaving LA, the fight with Kurt, it all just felt too heavy. My younger brother Alex tried his best to help. He would call me 3 times a day, checking if I was okay. When the pandemic hit, we started living together, and for a while, it seemed like things might get better. We had some good times, but the isolation started eating away at whatever progress I had made. The hardest part wasn't even missing her anymore. It was the hopelessness that had settled into my bones. Every time I tried to do something productive, my mind would find a way to make me feel worthless. It became an endless cycle. Try to feel better, fail, lay down and cry, repeat. Looking back at those messages on her iPad feels like a lifetime ago now. Sometimes I wonder if I should have handled things differently, if there was something I could have done to make it all turn out better. But then, I remember that you can't fix someone else's choices. She made hers, and I made mine. The people from that online community who helped me. James and his wife, the strangers who offered me places to stay, the ones who sent messages of support. They probably have no idea how much their kindness meant to me during those dark days. They showed me that even when you lose someone you thought was your whole world, there's still good out there. They say time heals all wounds, but they don't tell you how much the healing hurts, or how it leaves scars that change who you are. Moving across the world for love is a beautiful story when it works out. When it doesn't, it's a reminder of how far you have to go to find your way back home. I never did read that long email she sent me. Some questions are better left unanswered, some stories better left unfinished. Maybe that's okay. Maybe sometimes the ending isn't about getting closure or understanding why things happened the way they did. Maybe sometimes it's just about finding the strength to keep going, one day at a time, until the pain becomes a little more bearable. And maybe somewhere in all of this, there's a lesson about love and trust and starting over. But right now, laying in my childhood bedroom on the other side of the world from where I thought my life would be, I'm still trying to figure out what that lesson is.